to my YouTube channel. My name is Hope Taylor and I am a photographer serving both Charleston and Savannah, and this YouTube channel is where I share photography education as well as a little bit of a peek into my life living in the Low Country. And as of recently, I've been sharing a little bit about wedding planning because I am now a bride, which is crazy after being a wedding photographer for over 8 years now. It's really weird to be on the other end of the spectrum, right? Like now I'm a bride and I'm making all these decisions and talking to all of these vendors, and it's crazy and also literally the most fun I've ever had. But one of the questions that I have gotten super often is people asking who my photographer is, how I picked my photographer, how the heck I made that decision after 8 years of working with photographers and working as a photographer on wedding days. And today I want to talk about the 5 reasons or the 5 things I looked for when I was deciding who my wedding photographer was going to be. And in full transparency, I knew who my wedding photographer was going to be a while ago. I have followed her for years and years and years. Her name is Lauren Fair. She's absolutely amazing. She shoots film. Her work is to die for. And I knew I wanted her to shoot my wedding probably 2 years ago. But I want to talk through, I've kind of backpedaled a little bit and talked through the 5 things that I decided were the reason I wanted to work with her as a wedding photographer myself. So number 1, and the most important thing to me, which some of you are going to be surprised by, is that I wanted to work with a photographer as a bride with a style that was completely different than my own photography style. Because since I've been in the industry so long, it's really easy for some of the wedding planning process to feel a little bit like work to me because of the fact that I'm used to emailing florists and I'm used to working on timelines and planning wedding related things. So I wanted to feel like a client. I wanted to feel like I didn't know what my wedding gallery was going to look like, and I wanted somebody who was going to shoot things completely differently than how I would shoot them. I wanted to get my gallery back and scroll through and think to myself, I didn't even know she took that photo. Like I wouldn't have even thought to get that perspective. I wanted the style to be completely different so that I felt truly like a bride and not like a wedding photographer that was going to know every pose and angle and image that I was going to get back. So that was a huge and really important piece of the process to me. Number 2 is something that I recommend everybody look at when they are looking for wedding photographers. And even though I already knew who I wanted my wedding photographer to be, I still checked for this before booking her. And that is to be sure that they have consistent wedding galleries, even in really crappy situations. And what I mean by that is to see a wedding gallery that was taken on a day when it couldn't stop raining, to see a wedding gallery that maybe things ran 2 hours late and they ended up having to shoot the portraits once it was dark outside, and to see a wedding gallery where, I don't know, the photographer's tire blew on the way and they got there 2 hours late. I want to make sure that the photographer can still turn around images in any scenario, not only at a really styled shoot or wedding day. So I looked through one of Lauren's galleries that was actually taken in Charleston on a very rainy day that apparently she told me everything went wrong. And it was gorgeous. It was absolutely beautiful, and it was just as consistent with her other work. And as a wedding photographer who knows the types of scenarios that can present themselves, I wanted to feel like I could be confident that no matter what happened on my wedding day, the gallery would be consistent to the rest of their work. And obviously that was the case with Lauren. Number 3 is something that I think a lot of brides overlook and don't think is going to be a super important part of their wedding day. But as a photographer, one of my favorite parts of every wedding day to photograph is the getting ready portion of the morning. I love photographing my brides with her bridesmaids when they're getting makeup done and sipping mimosas in their matching pajamas and robes. And I really wanted to make sure that the photographer I chose highlighted that part of the day in the same way that I do as a photographer and in the same way that I want it to be highlighted as a bride. So just making sure that the getting ready portion of the day had just as many photos and just as many creative angles and beautiful shots as the portrait part of the day and the parts of the day that are like quote unquote easier to make beautiful. Sometimes it's hard to get really pretty getting ready images and you have to work hard to clear the space and get the right angle and the right lighting. And I wanted to be sure that my photographer prioritized that. Number 4 is something that it's been very unique for me to like process as a bride now, because as a photographer, the wedding industry is very bride focused, right? Like a lot of advertising, a lot of client gifts, a lot of images, a lot of marketing is all geared towards the bride, which it just is what it is. That's just kind of what the wedding industry has always been. But now that I'm on the receiving end of being the bride, I want Hayden to be in just as many photos. I want him to be highlighted. I want the groomsmen to be highlighted. I want the guys getting ready to be highlighted. and I want to look through my gallery and feel like it was just as much about him as it was about me. And realizing that as the bride has now made me way more intentional about how I shoot wedding days. But I wanted to be sure that in my photographer's sample galleries that the bride and the groom were both highlighted equally, and that it was going to be just as much Hayden's day as it was my day. And the fifth thing that's important to me that might not be important to everybody was turnaround time. I do things very quickly in my business. I'm just like a fast moving person in general. And so I wanted to make sure that I was very clear on when I could expect my images, when I could expect my sneak peeks, when I could expect my full gallery, all of that good stuff. So I just had clear expectations set on turnaround time. This greatly varies amongst photographers, especially film photographers. They just realistically can't have as fast of a turnaround time as a digital photographer, but I just wanted to be sure that I was clear on that it was clearly stated in the contract, and that my expectations were set accordingly. So I hope this was interesting. I hope it was interesting to hear the 5 biggest things that I looked for with my wedding photographer. I literally cannot wait to work with Lauren. Our engagement session is in March, and I'm literally going to explode. I'm so excited about it. Let me know what other wedding related things you want to see from me as somebody who's worked in the wedding industry for so long. I would love to talk more about my perspective on the wedding planning process. So let me know what you want to see below. I might film one of your ideas, but thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to get access to my videos each week, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.